Okay, so this One Health initiative began at UAF several years ago. It's directed by Arlie Reynolds. I'm filling in for him today. And the initiative has three main components that are captured in that diagram in the upper left. The three main components are human health, animal health, and environmental health. And as the diagram indicates, those three components overlap. Animal health and environmental health affect human health, and humans in turn affect animal health and environmental health. So we have this intersection that the One Health initiative is addressing, and one of the main interests of the One Health initiative is how climate and climate change may impact all three of those components. And what I've tried to do here in the lower left is highlight some of the ways in which climate and climate change can enter into human health, environmental health, and other types of health issues. I'll start first with the warmer temperatures. Alaska is definitely warming. It's warming at a more rapid rate than almost any place else in the hemisphere. Higher temperatures lead to invasive species. That can mean insects that carry viruses. There's concern that things like the West Nile virus may eventually make their way to Alaska. Another type of invasives would be plants, vegetation, which can impact the food supply for wildlife. They can impact the subsistence activities of communities that rely on subsistence foods. The second example of an impact of climate is through warmer water temperatures. The photo at the upper left in the middle is a photo of an algal bloom in the Bering Sea. These algal blooms are increasing as water temperatures warm. The algal blooms often are associated with toxins. Toxins are showing up in marine mammals around Alaska's coast. They're showing up in seabirds and shorebirds. So we have impacts at least on the health of the animals and the marine mammals and the marine ecosystem. Third way in which climate can impact health is through the lengthening summers. As climate warms, the summer season becomes longer. That leads to increased wildfire severity. Wildfire seasons become longer and increasingly severe. The middle panel on the left, the middle photo on the left, shows a satellite picture of smoke over interior Alaska during a severe wildfire season. And smoke has reached levels where it's clearly a health impact, or has health impacts on humans as well as wildlife. The longer, drier summers also favor increased road dust in small communities where the roads are generally unpaved. This is a health risk for communities that are spread throughout Alaska. And there's a photo down at the lower left showing what the typical road dust scene looks like during the summer in an interior village. And the last of the health impacts comes in through increased hazards. We have several of these in the right-hand column of the photos. One of the increased hazards has to do with increased rain on snow events. These are freezing rain events that create ice layers. These ice layers can prevent the grazing by wildlife. The photo at the upper right shows a reindeer herd that was impacted by a freezing rain event, was unable to access food. There have been events documented where tens of thousands of reindeer or caribou have perished as a result of ice storms during the winter. The middle photo on the right is the road impact, which serves as a hazard for humans just in local transportation. And the lower right impact shows the increase in, the changes required in transportation over sea ice when we have a warming climate. This is actually a photo of the Iditarod race finishing up in Nome last year. The race normally finishes offshore on the ice cover, the sea ice. But you can see in the photo that there was essentially no sea ice, so the race had to be diverted to land. The way in which this is a hazard is that ice does serve as a platform for a lot of subsistence activities and for travel by offshore communities. When the ice degrades or becomes non-existent, it serves as essentially a hazard to the communities that rely on it, not only for travel but for other purposes. So I'll finish up by summarizing the message at the lower right, which points out a few of the needs that have emerged in trying to link climate change with human health and environmental health as well as animal health. One is that the metrics of health-related impacts, whether they're related to climate or other drivers, the metrics, the data for these metrics, is hard to come by. Health information is scattered through different medical facilities. There are few databases that would compare with the ones we have to work with in climate. So one of the real needs is for a more organized framework for health data so that these connections between health and climate can be put on a more solid quantitative footing. If we were able to do that, we would be able to come up with health-related risk assessments. We would be able to determine how the changing climate is going to change the risks. But we do need that database on health information in order to do that type of assessment and projection. And if that step were done, it would lead to the ability to plan, to adapt, and to come up with solutions for some of these climate-related impacts on health. And the final comment is that a health aspect that's missing from this discussion and from a lot of the health work that's going on is mental health. That's a tougher aspect of the health enterprise to quantify, but it is one that could easily be affected by climate change in ways that we might imagine or ways that we might not be anticipating. So it is one of the topics that the One Health initiative will be focusing on in the next couple of years. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions.